The U.S.'s shocking 2-1 defeat to Panama. Let me try that one again. All right, let me try it again. The U.S.'s shocking 2-1 defeat to Panama. Shocking. I can't wait to A/B test that thumbnail on YouTube, because I don't think it should be shocking really to anyone that follows any CONCACAF team that what happened yesterday between the U.S. and Panama actually happened. That was a classic CONCACAF game ripped straight from the playbook on how to beat better teams than you, how a lot of these CONCACAF nations play versus teams like the United States, Mexico, just teams that are a little more talented than they are. They find ways to basically grind the game down, make it look ugly, and bait you into doing things that a more talented team with some discipline shouldn't do. So it was no surprise to myself or a lot of other U.S. fans that are familiar with our history with Panama. Panama has always been an issue for us, most notably last season. What cup was that in last summer? One of the ones that really it doesn't matter. But I believe during World Cup qualifying a few years ago, leading up to the last World Cup, the U.S. had gone down to Panama. We lost. I think that was the one game that Berhalter had done a huge revamp of the starting lineup to rotate some guys, or it was awful, but definitely not shocking. I know that's the word to get. It's the clickbait the day after the Panama loss. And I know on a couple of the network sports shows that are kind of covering Copa, the word shocking was kind of thrown around a little bit. And I think that's deliberately just to cause a little drama in the conversation. But I will say, of the people that I've heard after the game, who I wouldn't say I'm a big fan of Lawless or Dempsey. I do like Seb. I do like Herc. I think this wasn't shocking at all. This is exactly what you would think would happen in what was a trap game for the United States after the Bolivia game and heading into the match for what is now, is it even going to matter, the game against Uruguay? I had said prior to Copa, the U.S. would end up going 1-1-1. Expectations versus predictions, that's two different things. We are 2 hours away from kickoff, U.S. versus Bolivia. All expectations are we make it out of group stage, and realistic expectations are we don't make it past quarterfinals. We get knocked out by either Brazil or Colombia. I said the over-under is pretty much the quarterfinals, and I think that's a good betting line. However, predictions are different. I'm going to make my predictions and say the U.S. team goes 1-1-1. We'll beat Bolivia, and then the Colombia game, the one we lost 5-0, that's going to come back. That was an indication that this team mentally have some issues. Leadership all the way through the team. How do you not get up for a game against Colombia? And then how do you basically quit in the second half? That's going to come back in the Panama game. We're going to be overlooking them. We're going to end up losing to Panama and then somehow pull a draw with Uruguay. A win versus Bolivia, which is one of the worst teams on this side of the hemisphere. And we would lose to Panama just because we get caught kind of overlooking Panama and really kind of focused in on what are we going to do versus Uruguay. and then heading into the knockout quarterfinals against either Brazil or Colombia. We all kind of got into that fantasy, but Panama was always the one that I know a lot of people had circled to say, this one here is going to come back to bite us. So I'm not so sure that it's as shocking unless you say it in a way to where it's like, shocking? Was it shocking? This was exactly what Panama wanted to do. And I will say the one thing, though, that I thought Panama would actually target, and they actually got Weah to bite on it, was Pulisic. If I was going into a game versus the U.S., the only person really that I would kind of go after to get them off their game, because we go as far as Pulisic's going to take us. I think now it's pretty safe to say we're kind of a one-man team, and we go as far as Pulisic's going to kind of take us. And unless somebody else ends up stepping up, but consistently stepping up. And I don't think that's the case. I thought going into this game, if you were Panama, you target Pulisic the entire time and bait him into whatever you can to get him to do is exactly what Weah did. You get him to bite and do what Weah did. And I am the shocking part of this is who ended up taking the bait. From all reports and accounts on Weah leading up to this game, he seems like a very disciplined, responsible person and player. And that's not to say that you have to be perfect all the time. That's not to say that you're not going to have some weak moments when you play. But the fact that it is him, I would not have guessed would have been him. Usually I would say if you're going to get one of the players to take the bait for something like this, it would be Dest or Pulisic. And I thought if you go after Pulisic, you grind the game down so slow, you make it ugly. You make that referee blow the whistle the entire game, and you equalize, you flatten out that field to where a team that is more talented, and there's no doubt the U.S. was way more talented than Panama, that you make it so ugly that it's going to come down to a little bit of luck, and you get the referee involved, and you kind of tampered down a little bit on the inequities of skill top to bottom on the team. I thought they would go after Pulisic more, but they didn't have to because Weah took the bait early. I know that he's come out and apologized to the team, to the fans, everybody. I do feel slightly bad because you know that he feels absolutely awful. And it was because of that red card that he took will most likely be the reason why the U.S. doesn't make it out of group play. And I do feel like you need to give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm not quite sure what was going on, but you have to know you're heading into that in this particular game with Panama. So that leads me to my second point, Serginho Dest. And I'm glad Hercules Gomez mentioned this earlier this morning. I caught the tail end. I caught the brief clip, and because when this happened to Weah, when he got that red card and was sent off, all I could think about was Serginho Dest during the Trinidad and Tobago game, where he just mentally collapsed and just was so undisciplined. Teammates got onto him. I mean, it was kind of an awkward thing for us to watch happen on TV, to where in front of like millions of people watching that game, that his teammates like laid into him, and rightly so. And I thought out of that game, I thought that there should be a lot more repercussions than there was coming from that red card that Dest took against Trinidad and Tobago. But everything kind of played out. I think Berhalter has a fairly good relationship with most of his players, and whether or not he holds them accountable the same way that he used to, where when we take it back to when he sent off McKinney for that weekend with the ladies, who I'm still curious, like, who was part of that group. McKinney took the heat for it and didn't open his mouth, and officially those names never really came out, and the story kind of just died down. And McKinney is fine as far as from getting sent home after that weekend. But I think after Dest pulled what he did versus Trinidad and Tobago, I thought that should have been the opening for Scally to basically take that spot, take that position. And Dest's injury has allowed that to happen. I think the right back position right now, the right wing back, I think that's Scally's now. I honestly could care less if Dest comes back as a starter. And I don't mind him being back on the team. I know that he offers a lot offensively, but I think now with Dest's injury, and from what I've seen from Scally, now that we've given him a lot of minutes back there, he's worked up the confidence back there, he's gone against some of the top wingers, I think that's Scally's position now. And it should be, because I don't trust Dest. How does Weah's red card in the Panama game happen after that Dest incident? I have to think that Berhalter, the leadership group, the team addressed the Dest thing. And I thought that that message would get through to all of the players. And maybe they did, and it did. How much of that came up prior to the Panama game, to where Berhalter and the team leaders, everybody, you're going in against Panama. You've had issues versus Panama before. It's one of those matchups to where U.S. is by far and away the better, more skilled team. Panama's going to do something. They're going to pull something CONCACAF on you. It's coming. How are you not prepared to base? I don't understand. I'm curious if there's something else going on with Weah, to where things were kind of going out of control for him off the field, something going on, and it just broke during that 18th, 19th minute of the game. Because it's uncharacteristic of this player. And it cost them the game. It cost them probably a berth out of pool play. But if we were to take a look at the bigger picture, maybe this, we're not going to talk about what you guys are thinking we're going to talk about. Well, maybe we are, because that's going to be the third point. So that leads us into Berhalter's future. Here's the tricky part. I also said prior to going into Copa and prior to us even playing the Bolivia game that the U.S. team was going to go 1-1-1, win versus Bolivia. We were going to lose against Panama, and we would actually tie Uruguay. I think we're actually poised to have one of the best games that we can against a Uruguay team that's not going to be fully committed to wanting to play as hard as they can. They sit at the top of our group, I think, with 6 points. Goal differential for them is fine. I don't think we're going to get a fully motivated Uruguay team when we play them. I do think you're going to see a really, really hardworking U.S. team come out, and I think we can pull off the draw. But Berhalter's future, I said, does it matter? Will it matter if we don't make it out of the group stage? I said if we were looking at this as betting, as an over-under heading into Copa, that the proper over-under should be that quarterfinals, right? To where you're betting on, do we make it past the quarterfinals? Would you bet that they would make it past the quarterfinals, past either a Brazil or a Colombia? Or that the other bet is that they don't make it out of group play? The over-under was the quarterfinals. And I said, even if they don't make it out of pool play, nothing will happen to Berhalter, because too many other things that opens up Pandora's box, in a sense that if they get rid of Berhalter this early in this World Cup window, that's a sign that the decision makers, whoever was on that board, and I'm sure there's a list somewhere of who was responsible for bringing Berhalter back, that's a sign that that was a failure. Those people made the wrong decisions in bringing him back. And I know it wasn't a unanimous vote. I just don't know what the breakdown was on how many who had the decision in bringing him back were in favor of bringing him back versus not. But obviously more than not. But if they don't get out of the group play, if the question is, do you retain Berhalter? It's a bigger question than that. Because if you're going to get rid of Berhalter, you have to get rid of the people that were responsible for bringing him back, that were above him. Because that is where the critical thinking of he is the answer for us for this window, that's where the fault should lie. Not necessarily with Berhalter. And actually, this is one of those instances where if they don't make it out because of this Panama game, because of the red card, Weah's red card, you can indirectly say, well, yeah, it's because of Berhalter. He didn't prepare the boys to come out and play against Panama, knowing that they were going to be baited into doing stupid things. And I'm not going to be nitpicky as far as going into substitutions and formations and everything like that. Unfortunately, this is like the worst way for him to go out if that's how it's going to be. Because this is specifically on Weah. But I can't necessarily argue if you want to say it's a Berhalter thing, because he should have had Weah more prepared, mentally prepared to withstand falling for any of these tactics during the game. But I don't see them getting rid of Berhalter if they don't make it out of group stage, because the problem isn't just him. It's an acknowledgement that the problem is above Berhalter, with U.S. Soccer Federation, the board, those members that voted to bring him back. If you're going to make the argument that Berhalter has to go, you have to include and hitch it to getting rid of a large portion of that board. You have to clean house. Because how do you make him just the scapegoat? I mean, that's how it works. That's real life. That's how life works, right? You make somebody the scapegoat. And I hope that if Berhalter ends up going by the wayside because of this, I hope that doesn't just provide cover for all of the problems that are above him in making this decision. This isn't doom and gloom. Losing out on Copa and not doing well in Copa is not doom and gloom for the U.S. national team. And actually, if you look at it, a bigger picture, if there is a coaching change, if there is a change at the higher level within the federation, this could be looked at as a somewhat positive thing long term. It's like taking your medicine. Weah's red card in the Panama game is the medicine this team probably needed to facilitate some change with enough time before the World Cup in 2026. Time will tell going forward. Short term, we can definitely look at Weah and say he's the one responsible for the Copa failure. If they don't get out, you can attach that to Weah. If there is a change at the helm, at the coaching level, if Berhalter goes, and what I think, if Berhalter goes, it has to be attached to other people above him going as well. We have to come back and say Weah was the medicine to get things going. Not that he did this on purpose. And I think Weah is a huge Berhalter supporter. Him and Pulisic were very vocal in being very excited about Greg coming back and wanting him back. But I'm also not letting him off the hook because Weah, Pulisic, all of that leadership group on the team, any of the players and everybody within U.S. Soccer that wanted Greg Berhalter back, you guys are getting what you deserve. But nobody is bigger than the team. Nobody should be bigger than U.S. men's national team. And if there's people going to go prior to World Cup, it has to be everybody but most of these players. I just don't know if they don't make it out. Knowing what we know coming into this and knowing how much effort was put into bringing Berhalter back in the first place, after all of that came out and the issues with Reina and perhaps with other players, but we don't need to get into those details. Bringing him back, this is what we get. So just to reiterate what I've said before, I think in the last two videos, no matter what happens, I don't necessarily blame Berhalter anymore. Berhalter has gotten the positive feedback that whatever it is that he was doing for the last 5 years now, U.S. Soccer, this team, these players wanted more of that. Whatever that is, they wanted more of that. So they all take a little bit of responsibility for that. But if I was betting right now, even if we don't make it out of pool play, I don't think Berhalter's going anywhere. I think we're in it for the long haul. And I think what we're seeing, what we're arguing about, what we're stressing over is going to be what we're going to do each and every month that this team is active, playing, in the news, heading into the World Cup. And this is pretty much what we're going to get. There is no golden generation. This isn't the golden generation. I don't think. We're not going to know unless we get another coach. Then we'll know.